Another day of active spring weather with a severe weather outbreak expected Friday and Saturday in the Mississippi River Valley and the southeast. And a little over a week from now, we have the spring equinox. That's next Wednesday night, March 20th at 4:01 a.m. Central. Here is the current surface analysis. We are using the United States GFS model for the isobars and the Canadian RDPS for the thickness. Two nations working together here, a little bit different from what we got going on in the news. We have one weather system moving through the southern plains, pushing this cold front through central Texas. A triple point around Waco with a dry line extending south into South Texas, and a very strong weather system coming into Northern California. This is going to have an impact on much of the central U.S. going into Friday and Saturday. This afternoon in the northeastern U.S., it continues to be quite cold up there in Quebec and northern Maine. A lot of lakes still frozen up there. But as you go south, we increase from 20s into the 50s around New York City and 70s in Virginia. We've even got 81 degrees at Charleston, West Virginia this afternoon. No weather hazards to speak of in the northeastern U.S., just small craft advisories from Boston down to Chesapeake Bay. A little bit of light precipitation starting to develop right now. It is in the form of Virgo. You can see the large temperature dew point contrasts, but we could see a little bit of mixed rain and snow develop in southern New York and northern Pennsylvania going into this evening. In the southeastern U.S., clear skies, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. The warmest weather found in coastal South Carolina, where low 80s are expected. As we move into the southern plains, we get into some of that warm air advection ahead of this series of weather systems further to the west. One baroclinic weather system moving through central Texas with a plume of blowing dust starting to pick up from Big Spring to Fort Stockton. Today there is an extreme risk of fire danger. Red flag warnings are in effect across all of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. And we could see continued wildfire risk going into the weekend. And with that strong weather system moving through central Texas, we've got the risk of severe weather. You can already see these elevated cumulus elements around Brownwood down to Brady and maybe down to Mason and Junction. Those will continue developing and move into this area of better moisture, and there will be a risk mostly of large hail and damaging wind gusts going into this evening, and it will rapidly move eastward into the nighttime hours. Looking at the weather in the north-central U.S., mild in the Great Lakes. Temperatures range from the 30s in northern Michigan to the 70s in Illinois, and close to 80 degrees at St. Louis. And all of these pink and brown areas, those are wind advisories, high wind warnings, and red flag warnings. This pink right here, those are red flag warnings extending all the way from eastern New Mexico into the central plains. Mild conditions in the Rockies this afternoon, highs in the 50s in the mountain valleys with 60s on the high plains. A high wind watch was in effect along Interstate 80 near Rollins late tonight and Thursday. Southwest winds will be gusting to 60 miles an hour. In the Colorado Rockies, we have winter weather advisories along and west of the Continental Divide, mostly above 9,000 feet. There could be 6 to 12 inches of snow. Here's a look at those problem areas, winter weather advisories right there. And we pick up winter storm watches Thursday and Friday in the Sangre de Cristos and the mountains southwest of Alamosa. There could be 3 to 10 inches of snow, mostly above 9,000 feet. So no problems really for Santa Fe, Taos, or Alamosa. There's been nothing issued for them. Mild across the southwestern U.S., but you can see wind advisories just about everywhere with a winter storm warning from Show Low to Flagstaff and in the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And also a winter storm watch for the mountains of Utah. That's going to be for Thursday. There could be up to a foot of snow, mostly in the higher elevations above 7,000 feet. And certainly unsettled conditions through the southwestern U.S. The cloud fields have a cold core look, cold advection, that kind of thing. And we have had a thermal trough in the mid-levels move through there. Temperatures at 700 millibars were down to -2 to -4. That trough moving on off into New Mexico this afternoon. But another weather system approaching from California. And there it is, unmistakable cold front from northwestern California down into the Pacific with a warm front further north. And here's the surface low and cold advection cumulus. Those are low-topped cumulonimbus clouds out there producing rain showers. The integrated vapor transport charts do show an atmospheric river in place, moderate values, 400 to 500, moving through Northern California, and those will shift down the coast and weaken a little bit going into tomorrow. However, with almost 1 inch of precipitable water across California, we do have quite a bit going on. Winter storm warning today and Thursday above 4,000 feet in the Sierras. Amounts will range from a few inches at 4,000 up to 4 feet on the summits. Flood watch for much of Southern California this evening and Thursday. Winter storm warning in the mountains around Los Angeles. Let me show that to you right there. I know around Chalfont is out there, around Big Bear, probably getting all set for that. We could see a couple of inches above 3,000 with 4 to 8 inches above 5,000 and 2 feet above 8,000. The Grapevine on Interstate 5 could see a couple of inches. Anywhere above 3,000 could see snow accumulations. And winter weather advisory for Tehachapi Pass and a high wind warning out around Mojave until 5 p.m. on Friday. Other high wind warnings along the California coast and wind advisories as you go north into the Bay Area and Sacramento. In the Pacific Northwest, they're mostly north of that California system. Highs today in the low 50s in Portland and Seattle, with near 60 readings in the Great Basin area. The mountains of western Wyoming, including the Wind River Range and Yellowstone Park, they're under a winter weather advisory. Today and tonight, they could see 3 to 12 inches of snow. Winter weather advisories are posted for the Cascades above 3,500 feet this evening and Thursday. There could be up to 1 foot of snow there. Okay, let's head west. Do we have any other Pacific systems lined up? Well, yeah, there's one up there a little bit further north in the Gulf of Alaska. Alaska itself under rather quiet conditions. We've got this cold air mass extending into the Northwest Territories. We have snowfall advisories or snowfall warnings across much of central Alberta from Valley View to Edmonton. They're expecting 6 to 10 inches of snow. And in Manitoba, a snow event coming up for Friday and Saturday. As you can see here, there could be mixed precipitation up to Winnipeg and out into Western Ontario. And the remainder of Canada out east, cold, but no significant weather except up there in Labrador. And even the Maritimes looking fairly quiet. With the weather dynamics being very active this week, let's take a look at the Q vectors and the 500 millibar heights. We've got this large shortwave with an area of ascent ahead of it moving into West Texas. So here's where we're at right now. Most of the upper level lift from Lubbock to Dallas and Waco. And not surprisingly, that's near that area of developing storms. The main effect of this is to destabilize the atmosphere and steepen the lapse rates, making a favorable environment and removing the cap. And then by this evening, most of that will be shifting into East Texas and the Arklatex and into Mississippi by late tonight. Here's this other weather system coming inland. And in between, we have this ridge that may suppress stuff across the southeastern U.S. for tomorrow. So here's what we got for Thursday midday. Lots of forcing out there in the southwestern deserts, and it moves rapidly to the east into the Four Corners area and the Central Rockies. This is late tomorrow night. And then on Friday, very compact mid-level low moving into Kansas with an intense area of upward lift. You can see most of that's heading for Missouri. So I don't have the frame here for peak heating, but we can pretty much interpolate. It's going to be focused on Illinois for 6 p.m. on Friday. Not as much forcing down to the south, so most likely the storms down there will be a little bit more disorganized. But here we go with another trough moving through Texas early on Saturday and into the southeastern U.S. for Saturday afternoon. So this is where we're watching for the potential for severe weather as this trough moves eastward at the time of peak heating. Here's how things play out on the GFS forecast, showing the isobars in black, the wind field in blue, and you're going to see the cape come up here. There it is right there. That's the instability surface-based cape and the forecast reflectivity. In fact, that's going to be the showers and storms. So this is 3 p.m. This is right about where we're at right now. Large area of instability out there around Paris, Texas, into southeastern Oklahoma, and the model trying to generate storms here. Definite signals for convective initiation. And a lot of that moves into eastern Texas and the Arklatex, superimposed on this area of strong instability. And gradually, we start losing the heating. The area of showers and storms becomes disorganized around Memphis, and a lot of it's gone by 9 a.m. There could be some continued development tomorrow, closer to the moisture and those warm conditions down there in Alabama and Georgia, but not much organization with that. Then we go to Friday, and you can see the strong system moving out of the Four Corners area. Very strong lift and pressure falls out there in Kansas and Colorado. You can see the pressures dropping to 982 millibars at 3 a.m. and down below 980 millibars at 9 a.m. And very strong winds, probably 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts there in Amarillo. Could be a lot of blowing dust once again with significant wildfire potential. And as we go into Friday afternoon, a couple of areas of instability develop. One in the upper Mississippi River Valley, the other in Louisiana. And we've got this indeterminate area right there in the southeast Missouri boot heel, but still look at that wind field, that convergence. I think we can support severe weather there, even though it's not explicitly shown there on the instability plots. So by 6 p.m., a large complex of storms from Minnesota, Iowa, down through St. Louis, down to Memphis, and just southeast of Little Rock. The tail end storms near this area of strong instability, those could be severe, and there could be isolated severe cells all up and down that line. The details are not really known at this point. It's still over 48 hours away. And then going into the nighttime, we're looking at disorganized convection. Some of the stuff down south may continue to be severe. And then we recharge for Saturday. You can see the instability increases substantially up near 1,500 to 2,500 Cape. And we're looking at a pretty significant complex of storms developing during the day on Saturday. Some of those could certainly be severe, rotating supercells out there ahead of the line. That's one thing we're going to have to be watching for. And it could be a very active severe weather day from New Orleans through Birmingham, Columbus, up to Chattanooga. So let's look at the forecast, and we'll circle back to what's going on in Texas right now in just a bit so we get the latest. But here's what we're looking at over the next week or so. Tonight, cold overnight lows in the Northeast, near zero in northern Maine, below freezing in New England, and below freezing across all of Michigan. Then we go into tomorrow, and we see moisture streaming northward, a little bit of lift over this weak warm front out there in the Gulf. We're going to see storms redeveloping, a marginal risk of severe, mostly in Alabama, parts of Mississippi and Georgia, low-end risk of downburst winds and large hail. A big warm-up for the northern plains as this southerly flow streams north. Texas, 80s and 90s once again, looking at 90 tomorrow for both Austin and San Antonio. Another winter weather system moves into the Intermountain region. Widespread snow and rain from Arizona up to Nevada, Utah, and Idaho. Most of the rain will be below 6,000 feet. The system will move into the Four Corners area later tomorrow night, and blowing dust will return from southeastern Arizona into New Mexico. In Tucson and southeastern Arizona, there could be gusts over 50 miles an hour around Safford and Wilcox, and we'll see lots of dust and high winds in New Mexico and the El Paso area as well. Also, windy in the northwestern U.S. on Thursday. Winds will be gusting up to 45 miles an hour out of the southwest in places like Spokane and Pendleton. And then we go into tomorrow night. Now, this is an important chart because we're going to be looking at the cloud cover. Cloud cover here shown by the gray. And I don't have high clouds plotted on here. The reason I'm talking about that is because we have a lunar eclipse coming up tomorrow night. 1:58 a.m. Central Time is when the peak is, and you'll see the eclipse 1 hour on either side. The problem is a lot of the U.S. will be cloud covered, especially up north, out east, and in the western U.S. Only a few areas like Kansas and South Texas have a good chance of seeing that lunar eclipse. And a very cold night for California, Thursday night and Friday morning. We could see upper 30s and low 40s in the San Joaquin Valley, so you can see that snow already popping out there in Northern California. In Nevada, it's going to be down to 41 at Las Vegas and 16 at Tonopah. So a lot of cold air in place across the Great Basin and western region. Then we're dealing with this thing. Look at those pressures by afternoon down to 976 millibars and down to still 976 millibars as that tracks from western Kansas into northwest Iowa. And I did promise to get you this chart set up. I don't think this chart exists anywhere. I've never been able to find a plot like this, but this is the minimum sea level pressure ever recorded at each station. So we're looking at 971 to 974 across western Kansas, down to 970 to 973 in Iowa. It does not look like we're going to be close to those values, maybe just 3 or 4 millibars above that. So I don't think we're going to be breaking any records, but it will be very close. And of course, those storms get going along the cold front all the way down through St. Louis to Memphis for Friday afternoon. Another 90-degree day in Austin and San Antonio could see 100 at Laredo. And as we mentioned, extreme wildfire danger in West Texas with more blowing dust, as if we haven't had enough of that. In the Rockies, a massive cool down. The valleys will struggle into the 40s, 20s and 30s for the mountains. And Friday night will be the coldest day in that region. Overnight lows in the teens and 20s. 32 at Salt Lake City, and 27 at Denver. Again, quite cold in California, but not as bad as the previous night. And I'll just kind of go through this quickly as we go into Saturday. Another severe weather day for the southeastern U.S. In the northeastern U.S., windy. Wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour possible in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, on the mountain ridges. And in the north-central U.S., another push of cold air into North Dakota and Minnesota. There could be near blizzard conditions out there Saturday morning. In the west, quite windy. Snow showers tapering off. A mix of rain and snow in the Pacific Northwest begins setting up with this next Pacific weather system. Then for Sunday, rainy in the northeastern U.S., strong storms through the Carolinas. A cold day for Minnesota and Wisconsin, and another Pacific system continues pushing into the western U.S. And you can just follow your favorite area. Looks like more blowing dust once again, more wildfire problems going into next week. And then we get a pretty good dose of cold air going into midweek. You can see that 540 line comes all the way down towards Wichita Falls and Lubbock. So that'll be a strong push of cold air. Then a little bit more mild going into the late next week. But look at that. The western U.S. getting it once again. Okay. A little bit of a peek at the weather there in Canada. You can check that out real quick. Yeah, a little bit of a snow shower event there Friday and Saturday in Manitoba. And then the system lifts up into Hudson Bay. Deep convection already starting to break out from Dallas to Waco and Temple, and further west, a large area of blowing dust from Abilene down towards San Angelo. Let's take a closer look at the storms with the radar. So currently it looks pretty disorganized, but often in these kinds of weather events, there can be a risk of strong downburst winds. And looking at the surface data, I do see a 25-degree temperature dew point spread. Let's see, 52, 62, 72. Yeah, it's about 20 to 25 degrees. And that certainly puts it in the risk threshold for strong downbursts. Let's see, a fairly flat moisture field, 59 all the way across. Temperature decreases, so it looks like the theta E diminishes as the storms go east. We check out the high-resolution rapid refresh and see what it's showing. Just a little bit of organization, maybe some of that better moisture, the nose of that intercepts those storms out there around Crockett and Huntsville. But as you can see, not much northward extent, mostly staying south of Interstate 20. And that's it for this episode. I realize not everybody wants to help out on Patreon, but you can definitely help out by picking up a copy of one of my books. This is Weather Analysis and Forecasting. This will teach you a whole lot about operational forecasting. It's got a lot of information that is simply not available in other books. So head to weathergraphics.com and support this program. If you own these books, please post in comments and let us know what you think of the books and if it's helped your forecasting activities. All right, that's it for this edition of Forecast Lab. Hope you have a great Wednesday night, and we'll see you once again on Friday for another episode. Take care. Bye-bye.